What we're going to do, because again, as I say, I've done this 35 years, folks. Here's what bothers me. One thing that bothers me, if you want to get under my dandruff, is people on radio, TV, the internet, people who think they know it all. I'll call them financial know-it-alls. So here's the key. Whenever you hear anybody, even if I slip up and do this, I call them the never say never crowd. If I tell you never to do this or never to do that or always do this, turn off the TV, turn off the radio. Folks, a retirement planning specialist, and I've understood this over the year, there is no one size fits all. Certain products are good for certain situations, sometimes they're not. The reason we always talk about annuities on this program is because we're working for savers. We don't work with investors and speculators. Most investors and speculators, quite frankly, are not that crazy about annuities, and I can understand why. Because annuities are not set to grow a lot. They're not meant for that. They're meant for principal protection, and they're meant so that you won't run out of money. That's the purpose of an annuity. If you use it for anything other than that, you're probably not going to be satisfied. So let's look at the pros and the cons. Let's start with the pros, okay? By the way, Benjamin Franklin was known to do this. This is kind of fun. Just lay out sometimes if you're thinking about something. Start with the pros. That's what the things that would be helpful, and the cons, the things that may not. So the first pro we have with annuity, we've talked about this, is principal protection. The idea of going into retirement, nearing retirement, being retired, and knowing that your principal is protected, you're not going to lose anything, to me that's a huge advantage. The second pro is whatever you make is never lost. Remember over here, we have a floor. Whatever you make, if the market goes down, you don't lose anything. That's a wonderful thing, folks. Pro number 3, I love this one. It's a contract. I love contracts. Why would you want an investment that somebody could finagle all the time? I want a contract. I don't want it to change. Now, the problem is people say, well, annuities are complicated. They're contracts. Well, take time to read the contract. It ain't that complicated. But yeah, you can't be lazy. You've got to study these contracts so you can understand how to utilize them. Minimum amount size. Folks, a lot of people think that you got to have $500,000 to work with Tony Walker Financial. We can open up an account for you, depending on your other assets. I have to put a caveat there. For $5,000, you can start an annuity. That's not that much money, okay? Again, there's a caveat. We'd have to talk about that, but you can open them for as low as $5,000. I like this, avoids probate. You know, many of you are going out and you're worried about living trusts and spending all this money on documents. Did you realize if you have an annuity, it avoids probate? That's because it passes by beneficiary. Great situation there to avoid probate. Tax deferred. This can have pros and cons. We'll see this in a minute, but in theory, it's great. Let's say right now you've got a CD and it's paying some interest, or a bond that's taxable and you're not using the money. Well, folks, that's creating a huge opportunity cost because you're paying taxes on the same dollar over and over. With an annuity, because it's tax deferred, you defer those taxes, which saves what we call opportunity costs. Next, we have flexibility. The reason people think that annuity is tied up is because they don't understand how to make it flexible, okay? You've got to understand, you don't put 100% of your money in annuities. Annuities are a piece of the puzzle, but they're not the whole puzzle. I love this. Unless it's a variable annuities, majority of annuities we offer have no fees or very, very low fees. So we don't have to worry about that. And finally, I like the asset-backed protection of the insurance company, the claims paying ability of that big company, the state guarantee funds that offer certain limits. That's a wonderful thing. Another pro, a lot of people don't understand this. If there is anything left in the annuity, let's say you had $100,000 and you start drawing income and die in the 3rd year, with most annuities, again, depending on how it's set up, whatever's left in the annuity immediately goes to your beneficiaries. Even if you had your wife as a beneficiary and you forgot to change it, maybe she had passed away or he had passed away, then the children would still get it. So this idea, folks, that most annuities are gone when you die, again, it all depends. This is where we can help educate you about the proper use of annuities and what happens when you die. Finally, the cons. Folks, we're going to get into this in another show. We've got to talk about tax issues. Actually, annuities sometimes can create tax problems. You got to watch that. Potentially high fees. Like I said, we don't do variable annuities because we don't want to be paying out the nose and all these fees. They can be complicated. I get it. Most people that come to us, a lot of people have already had annuities, and the problem was either the person that sold them the annuity didn't understand it, or there's no written game plan accompanying the annuity, so the whole thing seems like a complicated mess. Again, that can usually be avoided. Low rates of return. Look, folks, annuities are not meant to make you 8, 9, 10%. Occasionally they might do that. We've had them do that in the past with a fixed indexed annuity. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to protect principal, earn a reasonable rate of return, and not run out of money. Don't forget the purpose of annuity. Surrender charges. Yep, that's why you better have a plan that sets in motion a way to avoid these surrender charges. Most annuities have surrender charges, and if you cancel that thing at the wrong time, it can be a doozy. So again, one more reason you should be working with a trained retirement specialist that understands annuities.